Captain Jinwoo Park was having his morning coffee when the universe changed forever. He sat in his command chair on the Earth Defense Platform Incheon watching the stars like he did every morning for the past 3 years, and nothing ever happened. Out here in deep space, but today was different because his communication officer suddenly went very quiet and very pale. "Captain," she said in a voice that shook just a little, "we are getting something big on the long-range communications array, and I think you need to see this right now." Jinwoo put down his coffee cup and walked over to her station where a message was coming through on frequencies that humans had never used before, and the translation software was working overtime to make sense of what looked like the most important message Earth had ever received. The message was clear and simple and terrifying. "People of Earth." It began, "You are commanded to surrender all military vessels and weapons to the Galactic Council within 30 standard days or face complete destruction." Jinwoo read the message twice, then 3 times because he could not believe what he was seeing, and then he activated the emergency communication protocol that would send this message directly to Admiral Sumi Lee at Luna Command, and to every government leader on Earth. Within 6 hours, Admiral Sumi Lee had called for an emergency session at Luna Command, and every important person in human space was either there in person or connected by video link. And the room was full of worried faces and nervous energy. Admiral Lee was a small woman, but when she spoke, everyone listened because she had been protecting Earth and its colonies for 20 years, and no one doubted her ability to handle a crisis. "We have received an ultimatum from something called the Galactic Council," she said as she activated the main display screen. "They claim to represent 12 different alien civilizations, and they want us to surrender everything we have built in space." The message played again for everyone to hear, and when it finished, the room was completely silent, until President Minho Choi of the Pacific Federation stood up and asked the question everyone was thinking. "How many ships do they have?" Dr. Kyung-nam stepped forward with a datapad in his hands, and his face was grim. "According to our deep space monitoring stations, they have over 3,000 ships positioned at the edge of human space," he said. "Each of the 12 species appears to have contributed to this fleet, and some of their vessels are larger than anything we have ever built." Chancellor Yoona Kim of the European Alliance shook her head. 3,000 ships against what do we have? Maybe 200 military vessels in our entire fleet. 187. Admiral Lee corrected. "But that does not include our civilian vessels or our defense platforms." The room erupted in worried conversations as leaders tried to understand how humanity could possibly fight against such overwhelming odds, and some were already talking about surrender terms and negotiating for the best possible outcome for the human colonies. General Doyen Shin sat quietly in the back of the room listening to all the talk about surrender and negotiations, and his weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes were getting brighter and brighter as if someone had just told him the best joke he had ever heard. Finally, he stood up and everyone turned to look at him because General Shin was a legend in the military and had fought in every major conflict humans had experienced since they left Earth, including the brutal Mars colonial wars, where he had earned his reputation for doing impossible things with limited resources. "You are all missing something very important," General Shin said in his calm, steady voice. "These aliens think they know what humans are capable of, but they have only seen our exploration ships and civilian vessels." He walked to the center of the room and looked around at all the worried faces. "They have watched us build colonies and mine asteroids and explore new systems, but they have never seen humans fight a real war." Admiral Lee nodded slowly because she understood what General Shin was getting at. "Project Deep Defense," she said quietly. "Exactly." General Shin smiled for the first time since the meeting began. "For the past 15 years, we have been preparing for exactly this kind of situation, and these aliens have no idea what they are walking into." President Choi leaned forward. "What are you talking about?" General Shin activated his personal datapad, and suddenly, the main display showed a completely different picture of human space, with thousands of hidden installations and weapon platforms and ships that were disguised as civilian vessels. "Every mining station in the asteroid belt can be converted to a weapons platform in less than 6 hours," he explained. "Every cargo ship has hidden armor and weapons systems, and every research station is actually a fortress that can defend itself against a full-scale attack. The room was quiet again, but this time it was not the silence of fear, but the silence of people beginning to understand that maybe humanity was not as helpless as it seemed. Dr. Kyung-nam looked at the display with new interest. The deep space archaeology projects, he said suddenly. They were not really about archaeology, were they? Some of the best weapons research humanity has ever done, Admiral Lee confirmed, disguised as historical research and scientific exploration. Chancellor Kim stood up and looked at the display showing all the hidden defenses. How long can we hold out against 3,000 ships, General? Shin laughed, and it was not a bitter laugh but genuine amusement. Hold out, he repeated. Who said anything about holding out? He turned to face the entire assembly. These aliens made one very big mistake when they decided to threaten humanity, he said. They assumed we would be afraid. The room was completely focused on General Shin now as he continued. They sent us an ultimatum expecting us to surrender or beg for mercy. But they do not understand the most basic thing about humans, which is that we do not surrender to bullies. Admiral Lee was smiling now too. What do you recommend, General? We send them a message. General Shin said. Something short and simple that they will understand. President Choi activated the communication system. What message? General Shin looked around the room at all the leaders of humanity and his smile got wider. Come and take it. The message went out on all frequencies in every language the translation computers could manage, and it reached the Galactic Council fleet in less than an hour. And when the alien commanders heard it, they were confused because they expected either surrender or desperate pleas for mercy. What they got instead was a challenge. Captain Jinwoo Park received the order to activate Defense Protocol 7, and suddenly his quiet monitoring station became the command center for a network of hidden weapons that stretched across 3 star systems, all across human space. Things that looked like civilian installations began to change and reveal their true nature, and what the aliens had thought was a peaceful expansion of exploration and colonization was actually the largest and most distributed defense network any species had ever built. The transformation took less than 12 hours, and when it was complete, humanity was ready for war. General Shin stood on the bridge of the command ship Seoul and looked out at the stars where 3,000 alien ships were approaching Earth, and he was still smiling. They wanted to see what dangerous humans look like, he said to Admiral Lee. Now they are going to find out. The Galactic Council had made their ultimatum expecting quick surrender from a primitive species, but what they got instead was 12 billion humans who had just been told they could not explore the stars freely anymore. And 12 billion humans had the same response. They laughed. Ambassador Hijino was drinking tea with the Valari trade representative when her emergency communicator started beeping with the highest priority signal she had ever received. She was stationed on Kepler Station, which was supposed to be neutral, territory where different species could meet and trade peacefully, but when she read the message from Earth, her hands started shaking. The Galactic Council has declared war on humanity, she told Kalani, the Valari representative, who immediately dropped his teacup and stared at her with his large golden eyes. This cannot be true, Kalani said in his soft musical voice. The Council has never declared war on anyone for 3,000 years. They simply absorb new species into their territory. Hyejin showed him the message and watched as his face went through several color changes, which she had learned meant he was very upset. They do not understand what they have done, he whispered. My people have been watching human ships for decades, and we know you are not like other species. Within hours, Ambassador O was receiving similar messages from contacts throughout the galaxy, and every alien species that had ever dealt with humans was sending warnings about the Galactic Council's massive fleet. The Kithera scholar named Venth contacted her through encrypted channels. Your species must flee. His translated message said, the Council brings 12 fleets and weapons that can destroy entire planets, and they have never been defeated, but Ambassador O had different orders from Earth, and when she told her alien contacts that humanity was not planning to run away, they all thought the translation software was malfunctioning. Meanwhile, Fleet Admiral Wanho Jiang was standing in the command Center buried deep inside the asteroid series and watching as Protocol 7 activated systems that most humans did not even know existed. Confirm activation of mining platform. Bravo 7, came a voice from one of his communication officers. Bravo 7 confirms weapons online and ready, came the response. Disguise protocols disengaged, defensive systems active. All across the asteroid belt, similar confirmations were coming in as hundreds of mining platforms revealed their true nature and what the Galactic Council scouts thought were simple resource extraction operations became heavily armed fortress stations. Engineer Soman Bey was working frantically in the Titan shipyards, where the largest construction project in human history was taking place in underground caverns that no alien scout had ever detected. How long until the Prometheus-class ships are ready? Admiral Jang asked her over the communication system. First squadron launches in 18 hours, Soman replied as she watched massive ships being fitted with weapons that human scientists had been developing in secret for 20 years. The aliens are going to be very surprised when they see what we built while they were watching our civilian vessels. The Council fleet was moving slowly through space, confident that they had plenty of time to position themselves for the attack on human territory, and War Commander Zeftar of the Xanth Empire was reviewing intelligence reports about human military capability. They have less than 200 combat vessels, his intelligence officer reported, mostly small patrol ships and system defense boats, nothing that can threaten our battle cruisers. Zeftar nodded with satisfaction. This will be the shortest conquest in Council history, he said. These humans will surrender as soon as they see our fleet. But on his sensor displays, something strange was happening throughout human space, as ship movements changed from normal civilian patterns to something his analysts could not understand. So the humans appear to be evacuating their civilian population, his sensor officer reported. All commercial traffic has stopped, and many ships are moving toward the inner system. They are running in fear. Zeftar decided exactly what we expected from a primitive species. What he did not know was that those ships were not evacuating civilians but taking combat positions, and that every cargo vessel and passenger liner in human space was equipped with hidden weapons and armor that could be activated when needed. Captain Taiho Yoon was commanding the reconnaissance ship Seoul, which was painted to look like a civilian research vessel, but was actually one of the most advanced stealth ships humanity had ever built. His mission was to get close to the Council fleet and gather intelligence about their capabilities, and he was shocked by what he found. Admiral, this is Seoul reporting, he transmitted on the encrypted command frequency. The alien fleet is massive, but they are not taking any defensive precautions, and their formation is designed for intimidation, not combat. Admiral Jang listened to the report with interest. Explain. They are flying in parade formation, sir, Captain. Yoon replied, beautiful to look at but terrible for actual fighting, and their ships are not even running active sensors because they assume we have no stealth capability. This information was immediately relayed to General Shin, who was coordinating the overall defense strategy, and when he heard it, he started laughing again. They think this is going to be easy, he told his staff. They are approaching human space like they are going to a celebration. Dr. Kyung Nam had been analyzing every piece of data they could gather about the 12 Council species, and he had made several important discoveries. Admiral, he reported to the command staff. I have been studying their communication patterns and ship coordination, and I think we can disrupt their fleet command structure. How? Admiral Lee asked. Every species uses different communication frequencies and protocols. Dr. Nam explained. They have to use translation systems to coordinate with each other, and if we can jam or confuse those systems, their fleet will lose cohesion very quickly. Technical specialist Minji Seo had been working on exactly that problem, and she had developed something that made her very excited to try it against real targets. We can do better than jam their communications, she told the command staff. We can fake them and make their ships think they are receiving orders that we send instead of orders from their commanders. The plan that emerged from these discoveries was elegant and simple and completely unexpected by an enemy that had never fought against humans before. The Council fleet would approach human space expecting to find a primitive enemy that would either surrender immediately or fight with simple, direct tactics, but instead they would find themselves facing an opponent that specialized in chaos and deception. Ambassador O was still receiving worried messages from her alien contacts who could not understand why humans were not evacuating Earth. "Your species will be destroyed," Kalani the Valari warned her. "The Council has weapons that can crack planets and fleets that have conquered 100 worlds." "Then they should have picked on someone else," Ambassador O replied, and she was smiling as she said it because she had just received a message from Earth telling her about Protocol 7 and the hidden defenses. The message she sent back to all her contacts was simple: watch and learn. On the bridge of his flagship, War Commander Zeftar was reviewing the final approach to human space when his communication officer reported something odd. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from Earth on multiple frequencies." "What do they say?" Zeftar asked, expecting to hear surrender terms or pleas for mercy. The message was short, and in perfect translation, "You picked the wrong species to threaten." Zeftar dismissed it as primitive bluster, but his intelligence officers were beginning to report disturbing changes in human space as their sensors detected massive energy signatures coming online throughout the solar system. "Sir, it appears the humans have more defensive installations than our initial surveys indicated," his sensor officer reported nervously. "How many more?" Zeftar demanded. The sensor officer checked his displays. "Again, approximately 10 times more, sir, and they are all activating simultaneously." For the first time since the fleet had left Council space, War Commander Zeftar felt a small doubt about the easy victory he had been expecting. The doubt became much larger when human ships began decloaking around his fleet, and he realized that everything the Council thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. The 30-day ultimatum expired at exactly 1200 hours Galactic Standard Time, and War Commander Zeftar gave the order for his massive fleet to advance into human space, expecting either complete surrender or token resistance from primitive vessels. Lieutenant Jisoo Park was monitoring the situation from the stealth ship Busan, which was hidden in the shadow of a large asteroid, and she watched through her sensors as 3,000 alien ships began moving toward Earth in perfect formation. Was Captain Jin-Woo Park's younger sister, and she had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment in the human fleet, which was to stay close to the alien ships and provide real-time intelligence about their movements and capabilities. "Command, this is Busan," she transmitted on the encrypted frequency. "The Council fleet is advancing in 12 separate formations, each led by a different species, and they are maintaining perfect coordination." Admiral Lee received the report at Luna Command, where she was coordinating the defense of human space with General Shin and the other military leaders. "Perfect coordination," General Shin repeated with a smile. "That means they are completely dependent on their communication systems to stay organized." He activated his personal communicator. "Minji, are you ready?" Technical specialist Minji Seo was positioned in a hidden facility on the dark side of Earth's moon, with the most advanced electronic warfare equipment humanity had ever built, and she had been waiting for this moment. "Ready to begin Babylon Protocol," she confirmed. "All jamming systems online, all fake signal generators prepared. Execute." General Shin ordered. What happened next confused every alien commander in the Council fleet as their carefully coordinated formation began to fall apart without any apparent cause. War Commander Zeftar was shouting orders to his communication officers as ships throughout his fleet stopped responding to commands or began responding to orders that he had never given. "Sir, the ethereal ships are reporting that we ordered them to attack the Cathera formation," his communication officer reported in panic. "I gave no such order," Zeftar replied. "Tell them to ignore that transmission." "I cannot reach them, sir," the officer said. "Our communication array appears to be malfunctioning." The same chaos was happening throughout the Council fleet as Minji Seo's electronic warfare systems systematically disrupted alien coordination by jamming their real communications and replacing them with fake orders that caused confusion. And panicked Lieutenant Jisoo Park watched through her sensors as the organized invasion fleet became a confused mob of ships that were firing warning shots at each other because they thought they were under attack. "Command, this is Busan." She reported, "The alien fleet is in complete disarray, and several ships have collided because they cannot coordinate their movements." But the real surprise came when Admiral Lee activated the second phase of humanity's defense plan, and ships that the aliens thought were civilian vessels suddenly revealed their true nature. Captain Hyen Cho was commanding what appeared to be an ordinary cargo freighter called the Daegu, but when she received the activation order, her ship transformed into something completely different. "Disguise protocols offline," she announced to her crew. "Weapons systems, active defensive armor deployed." All across human space, the same transformation was happening as hundreds of ships that looked like civilian vessels became heavily armed warships, and what the Council scouts thought were mining stations became weapons platforms. The Daegu had been carrying what looked like ordinary cargo but was actually a full load of kinetic bombardment projectiles, and when Captain Cho fired her first salvo at the nearest Council ship, the result shocked everyone who was watching. The alien ship had energy shields that were designed to stop laser, fire, and plasma weapons, but the simple metal slugs that humans used as ammunition passed through the shields like they were not there and punched massive holes in the alien hull. "Direct hit," Captain Cho reported with satisfaction. "Their shields cannot stop kinetic weapons." This information spread quickly through the human fleet, and suddenly every ship knew exactly how to fight against the supposedly superior alien technology. War Commander Zeftar watched in horror as his flagship's shields failed to stop the primitive projectiles that human ships were firing, and he realized that the Council's technological advantage was useless against enemies who fought with simple, effective weapons. "How are they penetrating our defenses?" he demanded, from his science officer. "Sir, their weapons are not energy-based," the officer explained. "They are using solid projectiles accelerated to high velocity, and our shields were designed to deflect energy attacks." The battle became a rout as human ships systematically destroyed Council vessels that could not adapt to fighting against kinetic weapons, and the aliens discovered that their advanced technology was actually a disadvantage against an enemy that used simple, effective solutions. General Shin was watching the battle from his command center, and he was amazed at how quickly the situation had reversed from impossible odds to complete victory. "Admiral," he said to Admiral Lee, "I think we may have underestimated our own capabilities." Dr. Kyung-nam was analyzing the battle data, and he made an important discovery about why human weapons were so effective against alien defenses. The Council species evolved on different worlds with different types of natural dangers, he explained. They developed technology to defend against energy-based attacks from space radiation and plasma storms. But humans evolved on a world full of predators that used teeth and claws, Admiral Lee realized. So we developed weapons that use physical force. The battle continued for 6 hours, and when it was over, the supposedly invincible Council fleet was retreating toward the edge of human space, having lost almost a quarter of their ships to an enemy they had expected to surrender without. Fighting War Commander Zeftar was forced to send a message to the Council leadership explaining how their overwhelming technological superiority had been defeated by primitive kinetic weapons and electronic warfare. The humans were prepared for this attack, he reported. They have been planning this defense for years, and we walked into a trap. The Council leadership could not believe that their most powerful fleet had been defeated by a species that had been in space for less than 2 centuries, but the evidence was undeniable. Lieutenant Jisoo Park followed the retreating alien ships to the edge of human space, and her final report summed up what had happened in simple terms. "Command, this is Busan," she transmitted. "The Council fleet is withdrawing from our territory, and they appear to be afraid of us now." The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than the Council could control it, and suddenly every oppressed species in known space was asking the same question. If humans could defeat the Council, what was stopping everyone else from fighting back? Ambassador Hyejin found herself flooded with communications from alien species that had never dared oppose the Council before, and they all wanted to know the same thing: how did humanity do the impossible? Her answer was simple: we refuse to give up. The galaxy was about to learn that the Council's greatest mistake was not underestimating human technology or military capability. Their greatest mistake was thinking that humans would be afraid. News of the Council's defeat traveled across the galaxy like wildfire, and Ambassador Hiejin found her communication systems completely overwhelmed with messages from alien species she had never heard of before. The Valari trader Kalani was the first to contact her after the battle, and his message was brief but significant. The impossible has happened, and now everything changes. Within hours, she was receiving communications from 47 different species, all asking the same questions about how humanity had defeated the supposedly invincible Council fleet and what this meant for the rest of the galaxy. The Kithara scholar Venth sent an encrypted message that made her smile. "Your species has done something that we thought was impossible," he wrote. "You have shown that the Council can be beaten." But humanity was not content to simply defend their territory, and General Shin was already planning the next phase of their response to the Council's ultimatum. "We cannot wait for them to regroup and attack again," he told the assembled military leadership. "We need to take the fight to them before they recover from this defeat." Admiral Lee agreed completely. "What do you have in mind?" General Shin activated a star map, showing Council territory Operation Boomerang, he announced. "Instead of waiting for their next attack, we systematically destroy their ability to make war." The plan was ambitious and dangerous because it meant sending human forces deep into enemy territory to attack Council installations and supply lines, but it was exactly the kind of bold strategy that humans specialized in. Commander Yejin Han volunteered to lead the first strike mission, and she took a squadron of converted civilian ships that looked harmless but carried enough firepower to destroy a space station. Her target was a Council supply depot in the Rigel system that supported their military operations in 3 different sectors, and the attack caught the aliens completely by surprise. Target destroyed. She reported after her ships had reduced the massive facility to debris. "No casualties on our side, and we are withdrawing before their reinforcements arrive." Similar attacks began happening throughout Council space, as human strike forces appeared without warning, destroyed their targets, and disappeared before the aliens could respond. The Council species were learning things about humanity that their intelligence services had never discovered, and none of it was good news for their continued dominance of the galaxy. The Ethereal Collective tried to use their mental powers to control human minds during one battle, but Dr. Sunho Kim had predicted this possibility and prepared countermeasures. "Human minds are naturally chaotic," he explained to the military planners. "We evolved with constant internal mental conflict and external dangers, so our thoughts are too scattered for telepathic control to work effectively. When the Ethereals tried to dominate human consciousness, they found themselves trying to control minds that were thinking about 17 different things at once, while simultaneously planning 3 different backup strategies and remembering song lyrics from childhood. The attempt failed completely and left several ethereal commanders with severe mental feedback injuries. The Xanth Empire discovered that their advanced battle tactics were useless against opponents who did not follow the accepted rules of civilized warfare. Commander Zeftar found this out personally when human ships attacked his flagship by ramming it with unmanned cargo vessels filled with explosives. "They are not fighting like a civilized species," he reported to his superiors. "They use suicide tactics and weapons that violate the conventions of honorable combat." "What kind of weapons?" his commander asked. "They accelerate asteroids to relativistic speeds and drop them on our installations," Zeftar replied. "And they use gravity wells to slingshot projectiles around planets." Admiral Wanho Jiang was coordinating these unconventional attacks from his command center, and he was enjoying the aliens' confusion about human tactics. "They keep expecting us to fight the way they fight," he told his staff, "but we never learned their rules, so we make up our own." The results were devastating for the Council, as human forces systematically destroyed their logistics network using methods that no civilized species had ever considered. Engineer Soman Bey had converted entire asteroid mining operations into kinetic bombardment systems that could launch projectiles across multiple star systems with pinpoint accuracy. "Target acquired," she announced, as her calculations locked onto a Council Fleet assembly point. Projectile launch in 3-2-1. The asteroid she had accelerated to 15% of light speed hit the alien facility 4 hours later, and the explosion was visible from 3 different solar systems. Captain Jin Woo Park found himself leading a coalition of species that had never been allowed to participate in galactic politics because the Council controlled everything. The Valari brought their knowledge of interstellar trade routes, while the Kythera provided scientific expertise, and dozens of other species contributed whatever they could to the growing rebellion. "We are not trying to conquer anyone," Captain Park explained to the assembled alien representatives. "We just want everyone to be free to make their own choices." This message resonated with oppressed species throughout the galaxy, and the Council found themselves facing not just human military forces, but a full-scale revolution. The Council leadership met in emergency session to discuss how to respond to the unprecedented threat to their authority. "How did a single primitive species manage to unite half the galaxy against us?" demanded the ethereal representative. "They offered something we never did," replied the Kythera delegate, who had secretly joined the Human Alliance. "They offered freedom instead of protection." The Council's response was predictable and desperate as they began gathering their remaining forces for a final assault on Earth itself. But General Shin was monitoring their communications, and he knew exactly what they were planning. "They are going to try to destroy our homeworld," he announced to the command staff. "They think that will end our resistance." Admiral Lee looked at the tactical displays, showing massive energy buildups at Council facilities throughout their territory. "Can we stop them?" General Shin smiled the same way he had smiled when the first ultimatum arrived. "They still do not understand what they are dealing with," he said. "Destroying Earth will not stop humanity." Dr. Kyung Nam had been working on contingency plans for exactly this situation, and his research had produced some interesting results. "We have been seeding the galaxy with human colonies and genetic repositories. For 50 years, he reported. Earth is our birth world, but it is not our only home. The backup plans that humanity had put in place were far more extensive than even most humans realized, and the Council's ultimate weapon would hurt but not destroy." The species commander Yejin Han received orders for the most important mission of her career, which was to capture the Council's planet-killing weapon intact. "We are not going to let them destroy any worlds," General Shin told her. "We are going to take their weapon and turn it against them." The final battle was approaching, and both sides were preparing for a conflict that would determine the future of galactic civilization. But the Council had made one critical error in their planning. They still thought they were fighting against a single species on a single world, when they were actually facing 12 billion humans spread across hundreds of colonies who had spent their entire history fighting against impossible odds. The galaxy was about to learn why humans laugh when someone tells them to surrender. The Council's final gambit revealed itself when Dr. Kyung Nam detected massive energy buildups at the edges of known space, where the 12 species had combined their most powerful weapons into an array that could destroy entire planets. "The energy signatures are off our measurement scales," he reported to the emergency command meeting. "They are building something that can crack a world in half." War Commander Zeftar sent the ultimatum himself this time, and his message was broadcast on every frequency across human space. "Surrender now and accept Council authority, or watch your birth world burn," he announced. "You have 12 hours to respond." The response came exactly 60 seconds later on all frequencies and in every language the translation computers could handle, and it was not what anyone expected. It was laughter. President Min-ho Choi delivered humanity's official response while still chuckling. "You really think we keep all our eggs in one basket?" The transmission continued as he explained, something that shocked every species in the galaxy. "Earth is important to us, but it is not everything we are," he said. "We have been spreading across the stars for decades, and you cannot destroy an idea by destroying one world." Admiral Sumi Lee revealed the full scope of humanity's preparations in a message that went out to both the Council fleet and every alien species monitoring the communications. "For 50 years we have been creating backup colonies, hidden genetic repositories, and cultural preservation sites throughout the galaxy," she announced. "Destroying Earth would hurt us, but it would not end us. The Council leadership could not believe what they were hearing because no species in galactic history had ever prepared for the destruction of their homeworld by spreading so completely across space. War Commander Zeftar was confused by the human response. "They are not afraid," he reported to his superiors. "They are acting like the destruction of their planet is not important." But humanity was not just preparing to survive the loss of Earth, they were preparing to prevent it entirely. Captain Heun Cho received the most dangerous assignment in human military history, which was to lead a strike force against the planet killer array itself. Her fleet consisted of ships that had been disguised as fleeing civilian vessels, but were actually the most heavily armed warships humanity had ever built. "Remember," she told her squadron commanders, "we are not just destroying this weapon, we are capturing it intact." The attack began with a massive electronic warfare assault as technical specialist Minji Seo used every jamming and deception system humanity had developed to blind the Council's sensors. "Council, Fleet Command, this is a priority alert," came a fake transmission that appeared to be from their own forces. "Human attack imminent, all ships withdraw to defensive positions." The confusion this created allowed Captain Cho's strike force to approach the planet killer without being detected until they were close enough to begin their assault. Engineer Soman Bey had designed special boarding pods that could attach to alien ships and cut through their hulls with tools originally developed for asteroid mining. "Breaching hull now," reported the boarding team leaders as they cut their way into the massive weapon platform. The fighting inside the alien facility was brief but intense, as human marines equipped with kinetic weapons faced Council defenders who had never encountered enemies that fought with such direct, brutal efficiency. "Facility secured," came the report after 20 minutes of combat. "Alien crew surrendering and weapon systems under our control." But capturing the planet killer was only the beginning of humanity's final strategy. General Shin activated the communication system and sent a message directly to the Council homeworlds. "You wanted to see what dangerous humans look like," he announced. "Now you are going to find out what happens when you threaten our planet." The planet killer array turned toward the Council's most important military installations, and suddenly, the species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia found themselves facing their own ultimate weapon. The psychological effect was devastating as Council forces throughout the galaxy realized that their greatest advantage had been turned against them. But the real victory came when Ambassador He Jin-oh led a diplomatic revolution that changed galactic civilization forever. She had been secretly coordinating with representatives from 47 species that had never been allowed into the Galactic Council, and when the Council's military power collapsed, these species declared their independence. "The old system is finished," she announced in a message broadcast across the galaxy. "From now on, species meet as equals, not as rulers and subjects." The former Council chambers became the meeting place for a new galactic assembly, where every species had an equal voice regardless of their military power or technological advancement. Captain Jinwoo Park became the first human representative to this new organization, and his opening speech was simple and direct. "We are not here to rule anyone," he said. "We are here to make sure that no one rules everyone else." The former Council species were not destroyed or enslaved, but given the same choice they had once denied to others: adapt to a galaxy where freedom mattered more than power or find themselves increasingly isolated. Most chose to adapt because they discovered that cooperation was more effective than domination for achieving their goals. War Commander Zeftar found himself commanding a much smaller fleet in a galaxy where military might could not force political compliance, and he had to learn entirely new ways of interacting with other species. "The humans were right," he admitted in his final report. "Fear is not a foundation for lasting peace." General Shin retired from active military service but remained available as an advisor to the new Galactic Assembly. When asked about humanity's victory over the seemingly impossible odds, he always gave the same answer. "We won because we never accepted that we had to lose," he said. The Council thought superior technology guaranteed victory, but they forgot that wars are won by superior determination. The galaxy settled into a new pattern of cooperation and competition, where species traded and negotiated and sometimes argued, but no one had the power to force their will on everyone else. Ambassador Hyejin established the first interspecies university where young beings from dozens of worlds could learn from each other and develop new solutions to galactic problems. Dr. Kyung-nam became the director of a research institute that studied how different species could work together more effectively. Engineer Soman Bae led projects that combined the best technology from multiple civilizations to create innovations that no single species could have developed alone. The changes were not always smooth because freedom is messier than tyranny, but they were changes that allowed every species to grow and develop according to their own nature. Children. On dozens of worlds, both human and alien learned about the day the galaxy changed when one species refused to surrender to overwhelming odds. The lesson they learned was simple but important sometimes. When someone tells you to give up the best response is to laugh and prove them wrong. The laughter that had confused the council at the beginning of the conflict became a symbol of resistance that inspired oppressed beings throughout the galaxy. And in the end, that laughter was heard on every world where thinking beings looked up at the stars and dreamed of freedom.